Good evening. This is the April 20th, 2017 meeting of the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission being held in Town Council Chambers. It is now 7:03 p.m. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Commission introduce themselves, starting on my right.
Jonathan Formicella, alternate.
Leanne Ambrosi, Commissioner.
David Townsend, Vice Chairman.
William Porter, Chairman.
Michael Riley, Commissioner.
Will Agresta, Planning.
Scott Schatz, I am the Scoop Director and Town Engineer.
Rebecca Wood, Recording Secretary.
Thank you. General public participation. Is there anyone who would like to address the Commission on a matter not related to a public hearing? Mr. Antonazzi.
My name is Mark Antonazzi. I reside at 21 Fan Hill Road here in town. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission here, I came to you about 2 weeks ago with a concern that I had. And I came here tonight to thank you for finding a remedy for that concern, not just for me, but for other residents of Monroe when they drive into this town from Route 110. Thank you. That's it.
You're welcome. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Anyone else? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Hengis Carano, and I reside at 19 Shoals Road in Stevenson. And I've handed out a handout, and I am proposing a backyard chicken ordinance in Monroe. I've been a chicken owner for 30 years, and I think that any single family dwelling in Monroe should be allowed to have a small backyard flock. I have also added, on page 2 are the local surrounding town zoning comparing to Monroe, and I've also, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I also put a chicken coop form, which is what the town of Trumbull uses, and I've grown up around poultry. I have Lyme disease, and I started looking into them after I heard about how many ticks they eat in a day. And I've had chickens on and off, as I said, for 30 years. And there are many cities and towns around us and throughout the country that have become more familiar with backyard poultry due to the rise in urban chicken keeping. Benedict's, Agway, Outfront Farm, and My Pet Chicken in our town all help a lot when it comes to something like this. I've gone to plenty of seminars. I frequent all 3 of these establishments quite often, and I really think that it would be wonderful to be able to have these in town. Westport actually has a chicken coop tour of its town, and I think that it can also help with our finances on a small scale if perhaps we utilized it as a way to permit if people have a backyard flock in town. I'm not talking about roosters. I'm not talking about large scale, up to 8 hens, but I think it would be a good idea for our town to look into this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to address the Commission? Okay, moving on. General appointments, we have none. Item number 5, public hearing, special exception permits. We have no new applications, is that correct, Will? These are all postponed?
Just, 2 of them postponed.
New ones, so I don't have to read this whole thing, because we're continuing.
Yeah, this is a continuation.
Okay, under item number 5, we have SCP 2016-11, file number 1581A, 269 Purdy Hill Road, special exception permit application for 16 detached age-restricted single-family residential dwellings. What do you have new, Will?
One second. Um, Exhibit 31, A or B comments. Exhibit 32, response to comments from the applicant. Exhibit 33, 7-page plan set by the applicant. Exhibit 34, updated town engineer comments. Exhibit 35, updated town planner comments. And Exhibit 36, Aquarium Water Company fire flow test. That's it.
Okay. For the applicant?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is David Bjorklund. I'm president of the firm of Spath Bjorklund Associates, and we have offices here in Monroe. And I'm a professional engineer registered in the state of Connecticut, and this is a continuation of the age-restricted residential zone special exception permit for 146 Cutlass Farm Road and 269 and 287 Purdy Hill Road. Will, is this we had sent over
I think that's what you said, isn't it?
additional information?
Isn't that April 20th?
Yeah, there were more plans that we had sent over.
I think you might have combined them.
Okay, yeah, they are. Yeah, they've been.
Do you want to tell me where to go and I'll see if I can?
The site lighting, just leave it there and I'll segue into that in just a second. The hearing was continued to provide additional information and additional submittals were required. What I'm going to do right now is go through that additional information. Hopefully, I will hit all of it. With regards to the landscape plan, I'm going to wait. Ken Twombly is going to do the presentation on the landscape plan. He had indicated earlier this afternoon that he thought he was going to be about 15 minutes late, so I'm just going to move on. And when Ken arrives, we will go through that. With regards to the site lighting plan, this was one of the reasons why we continued the hearing. The hearing was, we didn't have a site lighting plan at that point in time. It's a little hard to see, but this is a photometric which covers the light at the entry to the proposed development. Will had a comment that indicated that that the lighting spilled over our property line right here.
Make it a little bigger for you. Still hard to read,
Yeah.
but maybe you can work with that.
I'm gonna start asking lighting engineers to give us a lumen at a much greater spacing. Will, in one of Will's comments was that we don't achieve what we're looking for right at the property line. What we had done here in our instructions to the lighting people was that we wanted to light the intersection. So if we're going to look at it as our property line, we don't meet the requirement, but our idea was want to light the intersection. By the time you get the stone wall as the street line on the other side of the street, by the time we get there, we do comply with the regulations. In order to comply, it would be very easy. We would just slide this fixture back so that we would comply at the property line. It's your call. We thought from a safety standpoint, it was a good idea to light the intersection, but that is, we can do it. We can comply with that in however the commission wants us to. The actual sign here is illuminated with a spotlight that is ground mounted. Well, there should be another submittal on lighting for the entire site.
showing the light levels?
Yeah, it
There wasn't
it
in
might
the
might be.
package.
It wasn't in the package.
Well, it came, Nick, it came into us this afternoon, and we
Oh.
sent it over this afternoon.
Okay.
So let me, next report here. And then let's go to, okay. There was a request for a lighting plan. Wow. Okay. Can we try to enlarge that? Let's see. Looked good on the screen at the office. This came in as a print. It didn't come in as a digital file.
You're gonna have to put it
Okay.
through a little, just to let them pan around.
Yeah, I
Here, we'll put it, you're gonna have to pan around.
Yeah, I think just one unit is sufficient. This is the post light, which we have one located in front of every unit. We also have one located in front of the barn / maintenance building. And what we had done was, this is the same fixture that we're proposing to install at the street, which is ultimately not going to be our intention. It's a larger fixture than we had wanted to do, but the lighting engineer used it anyway. And so this is the same fixture with less lumens from the fixture itself, but you can see that this is the line. The red line is the influence of the light. And if you look around the entire site, although this light is probably going, this plan here is based on a light that's higher and is of higher lumens. We don't encroach over the property line.
So you've got, between these lights, you've got what? Okay, .03, so almost zero.
Yeah. And as I said, the way the units are arranged, there is no chance that this is casting.
I'm confused. Is this the lights you're using or not the lights?
This is ultimately not the fixture that we're going to be using. What we'll do is, if we do choose to change this fixture, we'll get back to the commission. But this is a fixture, it's the same fixture that we had installed at the street, but with less lumens.
With less LEDs?
Yeah. And I can submit a paper copy of that. The lighting engineer didn't give us a chance to interact with him, and he just went forward and got delivered this afternoon. But I think it shows compliance.
Well, that's good. I don't understand your timing as far as when you're gonna decide whether it's this light or a different light.
Well, I think the timing on the light will come when we finalize the construction plans. And then we'll come.
The commission has to, so you're saying the commission can approve this, but maybe you'll ask for a different light?
Right, we'll come back in front of the commission and ask for a different light.
Okay.
I apologize, I know that's a little awkward.
I'm not following your plan. Am I missing something here? Hold on. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's from a different, it was such a blown up, I didn't realize it was turned 90 degrees from the other site plan.
So I marked that, exhibit 37.
The architectural plans, there was a question from one of the commission members as to we were going to be having a second floor, and we do have a second floor in one unit. In that unit, we have a bedroom on the first floor and a bedroom on the second floor, and this plan depicts that additional second floor that we're proposing for one unit. On S1, we have modified the plan to indicate that there's a driveway down to the detention basin, and another driveway that went to the maintenance building. The original plan had showed those as millings. We made that modification based upon the commission's change in the regulations. There was a discussion as to, we're proposing to have some of the septic systems in the buffer areas, and the regulations require that we have an alternate plan, and this plan depicts that as to how we would, what the landscape plan would look like if we didn't have septic systems in the buffer. Starting here on the south side of the property, we are proposing to have 2 leaching fields. The planting that we're proposing to have here is simply ground cover. There's already a buffer that's located along the property line. And so what we have depicted here is the green would be there if the septic wasn't there, and the red is if the septic were there. The ground cover that Ken Twombly is proposing in this area isn't going to change whether we have a septic system there or not. They'll grow in both environments. Over here, what we have said is that the tree that is depicted in the green is that if we did put the septic system, didn't have the septic system, this tree would be located here. But because we are going to have a septic here, we're simply going to relocate that tree here. Over in this area here, we were proposing to have some ground cover planted here with the septic system there. That ground cover will be eliminated. And Ken is going to get into this later on. This is an area, the corner of the property, if you're familiar with it, is already heavily planted. And Ken has a proposal that he'll get into that adds some other plants into the area. Getting down here, we have a septic that is about half into the buffer and half out of the buffer. If we didn't have that tree would get planted. As a result, the alternative would be to plant that same tree right there. And so forth. We'd be eliminating trees, but they're just going to be replanted in a different area. So the location of the septic systems in the buffer areas, because the septics are underground, you can't see them obviously, the change in the landscape buffer is really minimal. And I don't think that you're going to be able to see it as a result of that. Scott had some comments about the proposed turnarounds. The best example, I think, is that we can say is that 14 and 15 share a driveway, and then there is a turnaround area here, so when they back out of the garage, they can back up and they can enter the street head-on. And as opposed to Unit 13, which the unit owner is just going to back out of the unit and into the main driveway for the development. There's a couple of things that why we avoided a configuration overall throughout the project with them sharing of the driveways. It creates a lot more impervious area. 2 units with single driveways such as this is a little over 1,000 square feet of impervious area. When you share the 2 driveways, it creates almost 2,500 square feet of impervious area. This is not a large development. There's only 15 units, and this is not a major thoroughfare. I would think, the best example one of the examples I can give is if you look at Northbrook, which has 318 units. When we designed that back in the 1980s, we had nobody backs out into Northbrook Drive. That's the main thoroughfare. But pretty much everybody else in the 318 units backs out into the street. This is a common design in a developed community such as this. We have found that unit owners don't like to share driveways, that they would prefer to have their own independent driveways. If this were a much larger development, I think that this could be an issue, but because this is so small, we have good visibility from each one of the driveways. So I don't think there's going to be any question when somebody's backing out that they're not going to be able to see an oncoming car or their neighbor backing out of the driveway. And it also eliminates conflicts between the 2 units themselves of 2 people deciding to leave at the same time, or somebody leaves their car parked in front of the units, in front of their garage, and then their neighbor is trying to back out, and all of a sudden there's a car here. We would prefer to do it in this fashion in most of the units. It also increases the distance between the units, and as I said, just creates a lot more impervious areas. I agree with Scott. If this were a street that had a 25-mile-an-hour design on it, and most people were going 25 or 30 miles an hour, as we see in most public streets in town, I would think that we wouldn't want to have people backing out onto the street. But in a case like this, I think it makes sense. Going back to the commission had indicated, we had discussed sidewalks. Again, we don't feel that this community is large enough to warrant sidewalks in such a small development as this. I'm going to cite again two larger developments in town. Northbrook at 318 units doesn't have any sidewalks. High Meadow, which is again an age-restricted development, has limited sidewalks right around the clubhouse, and that's 80 units. One of the larger adult communities in the area, Roanoke Village, has over 900 units, and there are no sidewalks in Roanoke Village. I just don't think in a development of this size that sidewalks are warranted. We have submitted the flow test by Aquarian. That was done, and it is satisfactory. With regards to the homeowners association documents, the regulations indicate that the commission is to review those prior to a permanent certificate of zoning compliance. My clients had looked at this and they had discussed this with council, and council had indicated that they really don't think it's a good idea to draw up the HOA documents and start to declare a community until the project is approved by planning and zoning, and we know that we have a real development here. I would now like to introduce Ken Twombly to go over his revisions to the landscape plan.
My name is Ken Twombly.
Well, we talked last time about increasing buffer in this area right here and putting some names on the plants and whatnot, which we did, and I'm still talking about probably dealing with this area because it's very visible from all these corners right here, and it looks nice now with the old barn that's there. It was built in 1802. So I really want to keep this as pristine as possible, but still offer buffer to the road from any house, this house right here. And we're going to do that as needed. I know that Will would like to hear that, because if I sell the project, which I don't have no problem, I'm not going to sell the project, believe me, I'm too far into it. We're going to treat this in a manner so that people aren't looking at the road, or people driving by can't see them to a certain extent, but also trying to keep that open look that I have there. I think we listed a few more plants and contents up here for what we were going to put for street trees. And there again, I treat this as an art form, and I really, I'm going to put in plenty of trees. I don't call them street trees. I call them, trees that are going to be located for aesthetic value of the whole property and the look that I'm looking for. And we'll put them in as we build these houses, and when we stand back and look in to see how everything looks, that's where we'll start planting street trees. I don't want to say that all these trees that I've got here are going to go into the exact spots they are, because they're not going to. I'm not going to lie to you. They just, if you take this print right here and scale it out and say that tree right there is going to be right there, it may not be. Maybe over to wherever it's going to be to make it look good. I have a reputation to withhold here that I want to make this look good, and it will. I don't know what else to say. The thing that I didn't understand, and Dave sort of explained to me, why we have to buffer things that are under the ground.
No,
Septic
you're not
system.
buffering the septic system, you're buffering the
The way it's
development.
written, it sounds like.
You're buffering the development, and when you put the septic system underground in the location of the buffer, you can't plant shrubs and trees on top of it because it's a septic system, therefore you don't have the buffer along the property line in
Well,
some.
that's just common sense. That we would put something else back there, or put something in the area that would compensate for.
That's what the alternative plan allowance is, that if you can't put the plants in the location where they're
Right.
supposed to
So you
be,
move it
you
away.
find some other way to do it that still achieves the purpose of the buffer.
Well, it sounds like you wanted to buffer the underground septic system. That's how I read it.
No, the reason that those things are allowed in the buffer is because they would then prevent you from planting on top of it
Yeah.
to create the buffer.
I don't know who would do that, but.
Well, again, if they didn't have that requirement, then they could go there, then there wouldn't be plants and they wouldn't have a buffer.
Well, I don't want to get into that sort of stuff. There's a lot of stuff here that's a little bit, you really have to have no common sense to make it work, I just think that,
No, you're missing.
I won't get into it.
But you're missing, I think you're missing.
I know, I get the point, but,
Yeah. Okay.
like I said, I don't want to get into it.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of things that have been going on with this project that are just totally unheard of. We keep going back and forth,
You should
back and
address your
forth.
comments to the
No,
committee.
it's you two guys that are making it happen, so we go back and forth, every time we get a new set of plans, one of you two guys recommends something different, then we do another whole set of plans, then we come back, And in the meantime, it costs us $10,000.
With all due respect, that's a very mischaracterization of the
Well,
commentary.
It's it's how I feel.
I don't want to
about it.
argue with you, but
Yeah.
there is not new comments here. These are all the same comments from day one. Your submission submitted less than half of addressing the comments in any capacity. So that's not new comments when you don't address the comments.
But when we send something over, and then you send back something like this, photometrics,
That was the original comment from the first set of comments. It's also the
I've
requirement.
never seen it until
It's
last-
also the requirement in the zoning regulations.
Yeah.
Again,
To have a photometric of a post light,
you have to have photometrics of your entire site of your lighting. That is a requirement of the zoning regulations. It is not something that I'm projecting onto you. That is what the regulation, in fact, everything in here is what the regulations are calling for.
so if somebody puts in a house in development now, they have to have a photometric.
This is a special exception permit. This isn't a house development.
So what happens when somebody moves in and puts in a 500 watt bulb?
Single-family residential development on a single lot has different regulations than your development. Your development is held to a higher standard under the zoning regulations.
That's all it takes.
Thank you, Mr. Twombly. I'd now like to introduce Attorney Ted Backer, who's going to address the house on 269 Whittier Road.
Thank you. My name is Ted Backer. I'm an attorney with Kramer and Anderson. I practice law in, well, I live in Danbury and I practice in Danbury and Milford. And I'd like to address the external driveway issue that's up in the corner there, the one home that does not have a driveway facing in. And to be brief and specific, the driveway, and I'll read the regulation, the driveway is a legal, non-conforming, pre-existing use, in my opinion. And if I can just, and I know you know your own regulations, but section 1.9.1 says continuance of non-conforming structures or uses, and uses is an important word here. And I have to say what I'm saying, preface what I'm saying in that house has existed since 1957, prior to the regulation. So your regulation says any building structure, and again, I emphasize, or use existing at the time of promulgation of these regulations may be continued, even though such building structure, again, or use does not conform to the provisions of these regulations. Your regulation is completely consistent with all Connecticut zoning regulations on the subject of non-conforming pre-existing uses. And there are a couple of cases which deal with legal pre-existing nonconformities. I'm just going to briefly read from one case, which is a 1979 Connecticut, not US, but Connecticut Supreme Court case, and I believe the letter regarding this is in the record. It's called Petruzzi versus Oxford ZBA, and they're talking, that case is a little bit different than this case, but the principle about a non-conforming use and its vested right in the land is the same, and this is a broad statement of the law. It says, regulations, and I'm reading from the text of the Supreme Court case, regulations shall not prohibit the continuance of any non-conforming use. Again, we got the driveway is a use. Use, building, or structure existing at the time of adoption of such regulations. Where a non-conformity exists, and clearly this would be a non-conformity, there's no question about that, and this is the important part, it is a vested right which adheres to the land itself, and the right is not forfeited by a purchaser who takes with knowledge of the regulations which are inconsistent with the existing use. And now then we get into an abandonment, and your regulations deal with abandonment, and here there was no intention of abandoning the driveway use. A vested right, unless abandoned, to continue the non-conforming use is in the land. The right to a non-conforming use is a property right, and any provision of a statute or ordinance which takes away the right in an unreasonable manner or in a manner not grounded in the public welfare is invalid. A lawfully established non-conforming use is a vested right and is entitled to constitutional protection. And then it goes on and talks about that. And so my opinion, and I think this is a fairly clear case, is that that is a pre-existing use of the land as a driveway, and it goes hand in hand with the house and limited to the house itself. The owner, even though the new regulation will say all the driveways have to be internal, that would come under a pre-existing non-conforming vested right under, I believe, under your regulation and under the state law, statutes and case law. And thank you.
The only wrinkle to that I would say, because I mean, you're right, there's a lot of things to be considered about that, is that the non-conforming driveway relates to a non-conforming single-family lot, single-family house. What's being proposed is not a continuation of a non-conforming single-family house or the accessory driveway to a single-family house. What's being proposed is a brand-new ARR development, which is a change in the entire use of the whole thing, and actually requires the abandonment of the non-conforming use because the non-conforming single-family lot is no longer going to exist in order to get this developed.
Well, here's where I disagree with you. I don't think you can, by changing the regulation, I don't think that changes the right to use of a pre-existing driveway, and that's where my opinion.
No, I get that.
Well, this is a legal issue, and we're going to have
Yeah,
back review.
fine, yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, anything else?
Going through my notes, I realized that there was another area that we had talked about last time, and there's a stone wall here, and the new plans, the revised plans, show that wall being rebuilt over on this property line here. There's also going to be some boulders that go in here. The property line here is not particularly well defined. There's remnants of an old wall, so that wall is going to be relocated over here and rebuilt along with some heavy landscaping in that area. This is a residential zone, obviously, right next door with homes on it. So.
And is there an existing wall where your proposed entrance driveway is?
Running along Cutler's Farm?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Do you propose to repurpose that wall in any way?
Yeah, I think I explained the last time, the wall that's there now that's pre-existing is just a rubble wall.
No, sir, I'm talking about at Cutler's Farm Road.
At the entrance.
Your site plan shows a stone wall down the full length of Cutler's Farm Road, and
Yeah, it's been picked over for 50 years, so we're just dismantling that whole thing, and then we're going to just place boulders along there with the landscaping, because there's really nothing there. And then the other wall that Dave was just talking about here, this wall here is another wall that looks like, I don't know where the rocks came from, but they were blasted rocks that are all along there. And then this over here, we're not going to actually build a wall there. We're going to place boulders in amongst these taxodiums so that it looks sort of natural rather than a stacked wall. There's no stacked wall there now. Well, there was, but somebody picked that one apart too years ago.
okay, thank you.
That concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Start down in the end.
Okay. First you cleared up something at this, that you wouldn't be using the millings per our new regulation. I was happy to hear that. As for the sidewalk that I believe the town planner proposed, or town engineer, excuse me, proposed would be on the inside. Is the applicant that opposed to having it only on the inside where the mailboxes are?
Well, you know, my opinion is aesthetically, I think it would look very out of character. You know, along with providing more runoff for the water. And I don't know really where it would go. I mean, you'd be putting sidewalks where they'd be walking across people's driveways, and it's too small of an area, in my opinion.
Finally, for a sign that's being proposed, the proposed one was 4 feet by 8 feet. Is that still the plan for the development?
No, that has been modified.
Okay,
That is indicated on the detail sheet.
thank you. That's all I have.
Leon?
No questions. I'm good.
No question.
Michael?
No questions.
Dave, you said you did include the new sign detail?
I think what we said was that, the new sign shall be only 10 square feet.
Okay, but there's no detail, just a note?
Right.
Okay.
Indicating compliance.
Okay, everything, all the modifications you made look fine to me and address most of the issues that we addressed at the last public hearing. My remaining concern is, you know, the existing one-family structure on 30 Hill Road. I understand the point that your attorney is making. None of us here are attorneys, so we're going to have to get a legal opinion on that from our attorney. You know, the fact that that 1 acre parcel was incorporated into this lot to give you the minimum 10 acres you needed, and now it's going to be maintained pretty much as a 1 acre residential property that's almost excluded from this development. I have questions about how that relates legally, so we'll have to have Jack review that. Anything from the staff?
I just have housekeeping items that I think I could work out with Dave. The layout issue with the driveways, that's just a typical, I agree with what he's saying actually about the internal roadway. It's really, if you get driveway turnarounds, you then have other things you have to deal with in terms of more pavement, and it's a question of picking the lesser of the evils. But my role in this thing is to point out certain things like the fact that it is a senior age restricted, or an age group of people living there that have trouble backing up and that kind of thing. So that was one issue. The other was the sidewalks, and the same deal with that. You know, a lot of people that are older want to walk, and if you have access driveways that are less than, they're reduced in width, and you don't have anywhere for someone to walk, they're walking in the driveway. So I felt that it was important to just point those two items out. The rest of the things, the rest of the items on there, I believe I can work out with Dave after the fact.
I agree, Scott. These are engineering issues, not zoning issues.
Right.
Will?
I think my memo speaks for itself for the most part. With regards to the HOA documents, the code, what it says is that basically those papers have to be finalized in order to get the CO. Obviously, understanding those documents beforehand, whether you do it now or you do it later, I mean, the problem if you do it later, there's no public process, there's no mechanism for it to be reviewed comprehensively in a commission level. With regards to the rest of the comments, again, I think they speak for themselves. I tried to, as usual, highlight it relative to the specifics of the zoning regulations, where the building regulations require certain things, and as I see it, based on my review, where they're deficient. It's obviously up to the commission to decide what's necessary and important for it to make an informed decision based on the record. With regards to if you want to go to Jack for an opinion and do that within the confines of the hearing, the commission does not have the time. They would need an extension from the applicant to get to the next meeting.
So my clients agree that we'll supply an extension.
Thank you. Anything else, Will?
Nope.
All right, Mr. Bjorklund, why don't you have a seat? I'm going to see if anyone from the public wants to comment.
Excuse me, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may just talk for a minute?
Absolutely.
My name is Kim Danziger. I'm one of the principals in the project, and I was out of town, unfortunately, for the first meeting. I didn't get an opportunity to introduce myself, and I just wanted the commission to know everybody who's involved in this project. I'm a builder. I've been building homes for 30 years. My very first project was in Newtown. It was off of Barn Hill Road, Nelson Brook and Canterbury Lane, and my project actually in Monroe, and my project actually abutted Ken's property, and that's when I first came to know Ken. So I've known Ken for 30 years. And when Ken approached me about his parcel over here, knowing Ken's reputation as, you know, in the landscaping business, very excited about the prospect of doing something new in this town that we would feel very, very proud of. We have long-standing roots, you know, here. I myself lived here for a long time. I'm now currently in Newtown, and I hope to. I can convince Ken to give up one of the properties to actually live in this project. That's how committed I am to the project. As we fully understand the needs to comply with all the regulations. There's zero question about complying with everything. Ken is a little bit more passionate. And that's why I like this project so much, doing this project with Ken, because it's kind of you commissioning somebody to do a piece of artwork, and you want to know ahead of time what colors you're going to use, what are you going to, how you're going to do this. Ken does it by feel, and if you've ever seen any of his work is just always fantastic, and I'm excited. He's ready. If you've driven past the property, he's already started to pull out the nursery stock. We have the trees and the plants and everything. It's incredible what's going to go in this project. Understand that the commission has to be concerned that in the event that we were to sell the property and somebody else were to take over, that we have to have it all laid out so somebody else couldn't come in there and say, well, you don't really show enough detail to do that. We appreciate that, but we are committed to the project. We really intend to make this a really, really attractive piece, and another something that everybody's going to be proud of in this town. This is not a new project, a new concept. This project has been done in other towns. We have looked at many other subdivisions and want to incorporate all the best ideas. The idea of having driveways that back out into our loop road. It's common. The post lamps in front of the homes. They're really, the idea of having a post lamp is just to have continuity within the subdivision. We plan to have photo cells on it so that every night they come on. It is just for general illumination so that people feel like they're part of a community. They're no difference. they'll match, the coach lights that are going to be on the home. It's the idea is to, just have this look like a residential neighborhood. We don't want this looking like a commercial. So we're going to drive everything to be, be residential and fit in with the neighborhood, surrounding us, and with the overall character of Monroe. Anyway, and we hope to be maybe be proud of it. We hope that you're proud of what we're going to achieve when this is said and done. Hopefully we can answer the few technical issues that that are missing, that or hopefully we've addressed it by now, and we're just going to do our best job. We want to be here. As far as the 16th house, the one that's out on the street, yes, it's pre-existing. We looked at it from the standpoint of knocking it down and recreating another home, and it just seems so illogical to take an existing house, an existing structure, and destroy it to to create something. That's why we really believe in that this pre-existing regulation, that that it shouldn't be necessary to knock down something and rebuild it again just because of a technicality, and that's really what it is. The home will be part of the homeowners association. It is not going to be a single family separate home. It will be part, so it will be in the documents as far as how it has to be treated, how they have to pay association dues. Clearly there's going to have to be some kind of balance on it, since they don't get the same benefits of being inside the subdivision, being outside, but it is absolutely part of the subdivision, cannot be sold off in the future as a 1 acre lot to somebody else. It's part of the condominium, so the land is condominium land. It's just a structure that's existing, and it just seems incongruous to require knocking it down and putting up another one just so you flip it around and put the garage on the opposite side. So that's the reason why we've been pushing to keep the lot, and that's it.
Okay.
Any questions? Be glad to answer.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? All right, let's open it to the floor. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application? Are there any general questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, turn it back to Mr. Bjorkman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Porter. We'll close our portion of the hearing now.
Okay, well, do you think that we can have something back from Jack to continue this to our next meeting?
I can discuss that with him tomorrow. I have a meeting with him on something else. I can.
For the time being, we're going to say that we're going to continue this to the 4th.
No, we're not closing.
I meant we were closing our presentation.
No, we're not closing the hearing.
No, we're not closing the hearing.
Because we need to get our lawyer's opinion.
Didn't need to get you.
All right, so we'll continue to the 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the connection.
Next up, we have item number 6, zone boundary change. What was on the agenda for tonight has been rescheduled for May 4th. Number 7, regulation text amendments. RAA 2017-05, file number 988E, wall signs and private street, commercial street signs. This is a commission-proposed zoning regulation text amendment pertaining to wall and freestanding commercial sign standards, section 6.3.2, 6.3.4, 6.3.7A, and 6.3.9. Notice of public hearing. In accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-7D, a public hearing will be held in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 7 Fan Hill Road, Monroe, Connecticut, on Thursday, April 20th, 2017, at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, concerning the following: RAA 2017-05, file number 988E, wall signs and private street commercial street signs. Commission proposed zoning regulation text amendments pertaining to wall and freestanding commercial sign standards.
I'm going to read the exhibits first. Exhibit 1, draft zoning regulations, text amendment. Exhibit 2, regional planning referral notice. Exhibit 3, adjacent municipality referral notice. Exhibit 4, section 83I, public watershed referral notice. Exhibit 5, Westcog response to referral. Exhibit 6, town engineer comments. And Exhibit 7, fire marshal comments. You don't have in your packet, but we did receive today a draft letter from MetroCog in response to referral, and their response was that this is a local concern. They have a 10-day period in which if they don't have a version, that would be their standing comment. So as of now, that's their comments. So what we're here for tonight is a commission proposed amendment to the design regulations, and it deals with really two different aspects. One is the wall signs on commercial properties, as well as private commercial street signs on off-premise locations. So I'll go through the code. So we'll go through the series of the amendments. The first amendment deals with prohibited signs. This language is being added in to give the exception to other amendments that are in this that are going to add in a provision to allow, in certain circumstances, an off-premise sign. So this is making that exception. The Amendment 2 has to do with the wall signs. What this is doing is that right now the current language is that you can have one wall sign attached to your building, and if you're in a multi-tenant situation, each tenant can have one wall sign. The exception that's being proposed is that in a retail commercial facility where the storefront of the building is in excess of 100 linear feet, that individual tenant can take his signage allotment for the wall sign and he can break it up into smaller signs onto his facade. But in no such time shall the cumulative area of those signs exceed whatever he's allowed across his face of his store. So he can have one sign, he can have two signs. Like if he has two entrances, he can put a sign at each entrance of the store. Item B is that this would affect anyone with a wall sign. Basically, you calculate the wall sign base, which we'll get into another amendment, based on the linear foot of across your storefront. And what it's saying is that that wall sign cannot exceed 75% of the front facade of how you measure that, and that's to get some proportion and scale relative to the building. So you're not having a sign go from one edge to the other edge. And then potentially, if you had multiple tenants, you could have one big long line of signs. It's kind of breaking them up a little bit. I'm going to jump to this portion because this is still relating to the wall signs. The current calculation for wall signs is 2 square feet per 6 linear feet. In many respects, that can be a very small sign. The commission has grappled with how to do this for many months. We had previous proposals, as you know. The commission didn't like either one, the one that the commission did, plus the one that an applicant had proposed. And I think this is sort of in the middle ground that the commission has re-looked at the issue. And what you're proposing is 1 square foot per 1 linear feet of building frontage, which is measured by the straight parallel horizontal line across the tenant front facade of the building between exterior walls or between the center point of any shared party wall. So in other words, you take the individual store, linear footage of their frontage in the store, and that's how you calculate your 1 square foot per 1 linear feet. So if your store is 25 feet across, that gives you 25 square feet of sign. So that's the extent of the amendments relative to the wall signs. The other amendment that's included in this proposal by the commission is allowing, in certain circumstances, a private commercial sign on an off-premise location. Off-premise meaning that it's not on the same lot as the use that it relates to. And this is number 3, which is being added. And the conditions are that the sign be within a private commercial street right-of-way. So that means no public street right-of-way, it's a private street. And presently we have one private street, or actually we have 2. We have Victoria Drive and, is it Corporate, Scott? Is that what it's called, Corporate Drive?
Yes.
That's the other private commercial street that we have. Obviously, new private streets could be developed in the future. So that's one caveat. The other is that the sign shall relate to the identification of a lot or tenants, and under these criteria. The lot on that private street would have to be 10 acres or more. The lot shall front solely on the private commercial street. So in other words, if it fronts on a public street as well, it would not be eligible. And the lot shall be at least 350 feet from the midpoint of the intersection. The whole relevance to that one is obviously the point of the sign is to provide attention to something that's remote from the public street. So that's what the 350 feet, it's obviously a lot that's further back, and that gives it some visibility from the public street. The area of the sign would be 50 square feet, and no individual sign panel, because you could have multiple lots that would be served by this, can exceed 25 square feet. In other words, no one person can have more than half the sign. If there were 3 or 4, obviously it'd be even smaller for each individual tenant. And the idea is the panels are uniform to keep, again, a uniform look on the signage. The sign is being required to be a ground sign. A monument sign is another way we've called those things. And the sign shall not be internally illuminated. There's a requirement that within that private street right-of-way that the sign be located within a landscaped island that had at least a minimum of 800 square feet, and plants are provided from seasonal variation. And the point of that is to give it a setting, because in the street right-of-way, you're usually dealing with a width that's only about 50 feet as opposed to a property which might have, 200, 300 feet of frontage.
It keeps popping up.
And the last standard is that anyone that goes on that sign that's getting that extra, if you will, signage up on the public street, visible from the public street, that if they have another freestanding sign on their actual lot, that sign would also be not internally lit or a pole sign. It would be also a monument sign. So again, they're having multiple signs because they have one on their lot, but they also have this extra sign. So this is some of the caveats or conditions of having that ability. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Will. All right, commission questions?
No.
Nothing? Leon, no?
No.
All right, I don't have any questions either. Scott, any comments or questions? All right, we'll open this to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in opposition of this amendment, a regulation amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this regulation amendment?
My name is Dave Sippin. My office is located at 234 Main Street, and I just want to make some comment to the changes related to the wall signs, the table and the 6.3.9 and the section 6.3.4 to the height. These changes are both applicable and beneficial to my commercial property, so I am fully in support of these and these regulation changes. And the current regulation on the books provides for wall signs that are much too small. And when you compare what we have to our surrounding towns, the peer towns we compete with to attract and retain businesses, we are, falling behind in that area. The current sizes are only 1/3 the size of, most of these other towns have sizes that are pretty close to what is being proposed, and that's what we used to have here. So again, I think businesses could cause them to actually avoid the town or cause existing businesses to leave. So, we've heard some negative feedback on the current regulation from some of our tenants. So again, I think this will be a big improvement. I'm in support of it and urge the commission to close the hearing tonight and vote tonight and get them on the books as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sippin. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of the application?
Hi, I'm Mark Samatolsky. I'm from Trumbull. We have a business in Monroe, two businesses, Maltos Express and Voracious Brewing. I want to speak in favor of 6.3.9. We have two businesses. When we moved to Dave Sippin's property about 9 years ago, for Maltos Express, we had to have a sign that matched the rest of the signs on our building. So we had an 80-square-foot sign. And that was great. And about 4 years ago, we tried starting to start a brewery, and we thought we'd have about the same amount of signage. But during the 4 years it took to go through zoning and site plan and building permits and build a brewery, it was changed from the 80 square feet to 15 square feet. So a couple months before we opened, we realized we had no signage that people could see. So I got a big V so people could at least see the V from the street. And it worked out good because people could see the V, but people think we sell vapor cigarettes. Someone thought we sold porn recently. I'm not sure why a V means porn, but my wife was very dismayed about that. So this is a better change for us. The problem is we just spent $2,500 on the V, and to fit a 15-foot V into the 50-foot Voracious is going to be tough and something we probably can't do. Someday we're going to have to replace the V with a 50-square-foot sign. So it's something we can't do immediately. So while it's a nice change, it doesn't help us right now at this moment. But I do like the change. I just wanted to say it's a good change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Jason Bresky, 52 Stanley Road. I'd like to speak in support of the amendment. Being a resident here, and especially with a lot of the newer, bigger stores that are coming our way soon, traffic on our roads is dangerous as it is, and with people hunting, trying to find small signs for various shops, it's quite dangerous especially on 25 and 111. Where a lot of the storefronts are set back a good way, and the smaller sign requirements mean that they're not necessarily all that visible, and we know GPS and phones and such is questionable when it comes to actually getting to your destination. So I think a larger sign so that people can be a little safer on our roads is a good thing for our town and for our population. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here who has any questions or comments concerning the application? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Will, anything else?
No, seeing how this is your proposal, it's up to you what you want to do, if you want to close the hearing.
What does the commission want to do? We'll close it? All right, we'll close the hearing. Thank you. Next up is, under regulation text amendments, is RAA 2017-03, file number 986E, sports field lighting. Again, public notice in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-7D, a public hearing will be held in the Town Hall Council Chamber, 7 Faneuil Road, Monroe, Connecticut, on Thursday, April 20th, 2017, at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter concerning the following: RAA 2017-03, file number 986E, sports field lighting. Applicant proposed zoning regulations text amendment to broaden applications of existing section 6.2.2G school stadium lighting standards to non-school sports fields within industrial zoning districts. Solely Engineering LLC, the applicant. Will, what do you have?
Exhibit 1, regulation amendment petition. Exhibit 2, attachment to application by the applicant. Exhibit 3, adjacent municipality referral notice. Exhibit 4, regional planning referral notices. Exhibit 5, Westcog response referral. Exhibit 6, fire marshal comments. Exhibit 7, town planner comments. Exhibit 8, response from MetroCog. Exhibit 9, Newtown response to referral. Exhibit 10, town engineer comments. Exhibit 11, building official comments. Exhibit 12, response to review comments by the applicant. Exhibit 13, attachment to regulation amendment application by the applicant. Exhibit 14, resubmission of regulation amendment petition by the applicant. Exhibit 15, updated town engineer comments. And Exhibit 16, updated town planner. Let me just check one thing. I believe the exhibit that I read was for MetroCog related to an earlier application. Because you had one, you withdrew it, right? And then this is a resubmission.
Yes.
However, as I said earlier, the previous application, we also did receive a draft MetroCog response to referral for this application, which indicated local concern, no impact, regional impact. And again, they have a 10-day period. If we don't receive a final, those are the comments.
So this MetroCog that we had in our packet was the old one?
Yeah.
Okay. Exhibit number 8.
Correct.
So there is another exhibit number for MetroCog?
Well, as I said, we got a draft letter in, so we didn't enter that in, but I'm recording it for you. So Exhibit 17 could be that draft letter, and there was no regional impact.
Okay. For the applicant.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering, offices located here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. With me here this evening is John Kimball from Kimball Group and Carl McNair from Beachside Soccer. Just first, some housekeeping items. I do want to submit our proof of posting to the Department of Public Health and Aquarian Water Company for the regulation amendment.
Thank you, Ken.
So we're here tonight this evening to talk about a proposed regulation amendment to address sports field lighting. We, the commission may remember, we had actually come for an informal discussion regarding this. We were working with an applicant who was looking to bring a project to town for outdoor recreational soccer facility. And one of the critical components of that is obviously sports field lighting. And if the commission probably remembers, recently you provided an upgrade to the Massick turf field. And as part of that process, the commission actually adopted regulations to support light poles that were consistent with normal stadium and sport field lighting, which was previously not permitted. So what we did is, in order to support our project, we basically mimicked that proposed or that adopted language for the sports field lighting on town-owned stadiums, and we expanded upon it to also include recreational facilities in the industrial district. We provided, in your packet, we have a narrative which summarizes the proposed regulation amendment, the zone change narrative, and also how the proposed regulation conforms with the plan of conservation and development. And as I said, what we the outdoor recreation is a use that's currently allowed in the industrial district, so we're simply proposing this regulation to allow for increased pole heights to support those projects. What I want to do is I want to run through the proposed language and then talk a little bit about some staff comments and see if there are any other comments or questions from the commission. So in section 6.2.2 of the regulations is where the current lighting standards are for school stadium, sports by section G, to establish sports field lighting specific for the school, and then add a second component for in the industrial standards. So we're adding number 2. Sports field lighting may be permitted to exceed the maximum height standards for light fixtures of the underlying zoning district, subject to special exception permit and site development plan approvals in compliance with the following supplemental performance standards of this subsection, as well as the following location and facility criteria. So we actually built in some additional performance standards and protective measures to ensure that anywhere we're proposing these types of taller lights, it wouldn't have adverse impact to the surrounding properties or any residential zones. So the first one is the lighting for the sports field shall have a minimum of 500 feet from a residential zone boundary. B, the subject lot area consisting of a single fee simple lot shall be a minimum of 10 acres to ensure that only larger parcels would be able to accommodate this type of taller sports field lighting. C, the sports field playing field shall individually or cumulatively exceed 10,000 square feet in area, which area shall include a perimeter area as follows. I, for baseball, softball fields, the perimeter shall extend 30 feet in the direction perpendicular to the foul lines and away from the field. For a minute. 2, for rectangular playing fields such as soccer, football, lacrosse, and field hockey, the perimeter area shall extend 10 feet minimum from the sidelines and 15 feet minimum from the end lines. Roman at 3, for all other playing fields, the perimeter area shall extend 10 feet beyond the playing field boundary. Now, those standards are consistent with the standards that are currently in the regulation for school stadium lighting. However, we did make one small revision for under Romanet 2 for the rectangular playing fields. We did establish a 10-foot minimum from the sidelines and 15-foot minimum from the end lines. I'll get into that a little bit later as to the reasoning behind that. Continuing on, under the new number 5, light standards, we're maintaining all the other requirements that are currently exist in the code. And for this, we just simply struck for school stadiums for this table of the maintained average illumination light levels. Since we're now creating an ability for this regulation to apply not only to school stadiums, but also to stadiums in industrial zones, we needed to make sure that that was clear. F, under this section, the commission shall specify the permitted hours of use. We are striking what's currently written that applies specifically only to the school stadium lighting and providing 2 bullets here. So approved school stadium playing field lighting, which hours shall in no case be permitted between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's consistent with the current regulation. But we are providing another bullet for approved industrial district sports field lighting shall be allowed with no restriction in hours of operation, just to provide for some, the zoning regulations do not have limiting hours of operations for other uses in the industrial district, so we were trying to mimic that as it pertains to the use of sports fields in the industrial district. Lastly, G, light poles and foundations. We wanted to create some additional standards that currently aren't in the regulation for school stadium lighting, but based on our discussions with staff, there were some additional requirements that were desirable. So we added light poles shall be located outside of the perimeter fencing or at the midpoint between 2 adjacent fields if the perimeter area is shared. As part of the building permit process, structural foundations shall be designed based on geotechnical analysis of support soils. Stress analysis and safety factor of the poles shall be based on AASHTO standard specifications for structural supports for highway signs, luminaires, and traffic signals. Support poles shall be designed to withstand local wind speed maximum based on the current AASHTO wind map as amended. H, limited appendages shall be allowed on light poles as approved by the commission. Such items, but not limited to, may include Wi-Fi hotspots or surveillance cameras, or just cameras in general, if they want to record practice or a game. And then I, all lighting systems shall contain provisions for automatic shutoff when the fields are unattended. Now, included in our submission materials, we did provide some analysis of where this use could possibly be applicable. So we looked at the zoning map and we evaluated where the industrial districts currently exist, where parcels exceed 10 acres. And it is generally limited to the the I-2 district in the northeast, in the north edge of the town line with Newtown. So Route 25 runs north-south here. So this hatch shows where this could possibly be applied. When you actually look at it, the majority of these sites are actually either developed, or the areas that are applicable are actually very small, so it's not necessarily applicable to a lot of these properties. And a large parcel here is owned by the town of Monroe. This large parcel here is owned by the state of Connecticut. This parcel by Aquarian. There are some parcels through here that are less than 10 acres, so they actually wouldn't be eligible. But there are some properties up on the I-2 district here, the north end of the Pepper Street Business Park, which is where this would apply. They're also on the southern end of Route 25, just north of the town line with Trumbull. This is the existing Swiss Army property. This would be eligible in this small area here, but again, Swiss Army exists there. This is a property that was recently approved for a proposed Walmart. This could be eligible, but there's only a very small portion where this could go. And then this 5 Victoria Drive, it would be eligible currently, but there may be some changes to that property where the property may be reduced in size and would no longer be eligible because it wouldn't have the 10-acre minimum size. And then there's a very, very small pocket where they meet the 500-foot setback from residential districts, but there really isn't any land that could accommodate the proposed stadium. So when we really looked at it, and I know one of Will's comments was they wanted more of an analysis from the surrounding properties, but when you actually look at it, it wouldn't apply to any of the industrial 1 or industrial 2 district parcels because those don't exceed 10 acres in size, nor would they have the separation requirements from residential districts. So we thought it would be best to provide it on an overall zoning map to kind of really determine and show the commission where it would actually be eligible. While we are proposing a regulation amendment that obviously affects the overall industrial district, it is tied to a specific project. Well, it's not tied to a project, but if this regulation is approved, the commission will see a project in the very near future to propose this. So I just wanted to provide some guidance on, as we look at some of Will's comments, how we came up with some of our sideline requirements. And one of the comments had to do with the current regulation has a larger requirement for sideline clear areas and areas along the ends of the fields. And what we're proposing is actually a 10-foot minimum sideline and a 15-foot minimum on the edges. And when we looked at some of the industry standards, we actually found that the National Foundation for High School Sports, let me get the name exactly, excuse me. The National Association of State and High School, National Federation of State High Schools Associations actually has defined parameters for those required sidelines, and they actually do establish a 10-foot sideline for the sides and I believe a 15-foot sideline for the goal line. So we actually are, what we're proposing does comply and conform with other industry standards. And we've also looked at, and we actually proposing, what we're going to be proposing would actually exceed that. We have 12 foot on the sides and 15 foot on the ends. And we actually looked at some of the other fields where the anticipated tenant is currently practicing and using their facility. So one of them is SUNY Purchase in New York. They actually have 10-foot separation around the entire field. Another location is Fairfield University. Again, they're 10-foot separation from the edge of the field to the fence. And then Middletown, Wesleyan University in Middletown, again, they're actually also with there's actually 12 feet, so it's a little bit larger, but it still is in compliance with what we're proposing for our proposed sidelines and end-line clear zones. Now, I'd like to take this time to kind of go through the staff comments that are still outstanding. We did provide a response to those comments, which is in your packet, but we did receive some new comments from both Will and Scott, so I wanted to run through those in detail. Now, requiring or encouraging that an application include a referral to the Wetlands Commission for any potential wetlands or vernal pools which may exist on properties outside of the subject property. You know, as a general rule, we don't feel that, you know, if there's a regulated area on a piece of property, they're obligated to go to the Wetlands Commission for an approval. And I don't believe there are really any other standards in the regulations that require additional referral measures for things like that. So we don't think it's necessarily appropriate in the zoning regulations, but if it would please Scott and the commission, it won't affect us because we're going to be going through the Wetlands Commission process anyways. So if the commission felt strongly about that, we would have no issue with that as being incorporated into the regulation. And now to go through some of Will's comments, they were a little bit more extensive, so I think it's worth the discussion. So I'm referring to his latest comment letter from April 18th. I don't have it up on the screen, but I'll be able to go through the language as we do. His first one is previously commented a map or maps should be provided detailing the existing and surrounding land uses within the abutting and affected industrial districts. We did provide the zoning map, and when you really look at it, the potential for this development is very limited, and I think we've demonstrated that. So we didn't necessarily feel a more elaborate assessment was necessary. Number two, a regulation soccer field measures 390 by 300, while a regulation football field measures 360 by 160. The minimum field size of 10,000 square feet should be revised to 50,000 square feet. And zoning regulation 6.2.2 G1D, which applies to the stadium lighting.
Is this a letter that?
This is Will's comment letter.
That's, oh, Will's comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have it.
Okay. I was looking at your response letter. What you're reading now.
I'm reading from his new comments.
But you're just reading a verbal response.
I'm providing a verbal response,
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So number two, he's talking about increasing the minimum field size from 10,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet. We feel that's fine. We're happy to accept that as a modification, and it would also clean up the 10,000 square foot requirement that's currently on the school stadium component. Three, the revised narrative is still rather generalized and lacks the details or direct responses to the provisions in zoning 9.2.2B3A through I. Also, the analysis still does not evaluate the appropriateness and consistency of same with the locations of Industrial District 1, which are primarily located along the business corridor of Route 25 in the northern section of Pepper Street. You know, we do feel that our narrative does address those requirements, and I think we've demonstrated through the other protection measures we have in place, in that it has to be 500 feet from a residential zone boundary and it needs a minimum of 10 acres. Those lots on Route 25, and it wouldn't be applicable to those lots because those don't meet the requirements that we're establishing in the performance standards of the regulation itself. His comment number 4, the following comments are specific to the proposed text amendment. 4A, as previously commented, the proposed minimum perimeter area for all playing fields should not depart from the presently required for a school stadium in zoning 6.2.2 G1D. Again, we established our sideline boundaries and end line boundaries based on the user requirements and based on some other standards that we found for the National Federation for High School Sports Association. So we feel that what we're proposing is appropriate and is reasonable for the proposed use.
And how does that compare to what's in our zoning regulation?
It's slightly, let me pull it up. It's slightly narrower from a sideline standpoint than what's currently in the regulation. You find it before I do.
It's on Article 6, page 15. Basically, for the baseball, softball, it's 30 feet.
Which we're maintaining in ours.
And for rectangular fields, it's 20 feet on the sidelines and 30 on the end.
And we're proposing
10 and 15.
10 and 15.
Would you be against going with what we currently have in our regulations for field size?
Currently, yes, because the user doesn't require that, and where they're currently playing doesn't provide it, and it's inconsistent with what is required under other industry standards that we found.
But you're not proposing to change the existing portion of the
We're not
regulation.
proposing to change anything as they apply to school stadiums, if
So
that's
we'll
something that you
we'll have
felt.
two different sets of standards for field sizes,
Yes, one would be for the,
where our ultimate goal is to try to standardize our specifications.
well, I mean, if anything, since we've provided that there is a standard from, excuse me, the National Federation of State and High School Associations that is less than yours, then if anything, I would recommend that you would modify your standards to be more consistent with the national standard for high schools. And then if you happen to have larger boundaries for your fields, there's no issue with that.
All right, we'll discuss it with the commission during deliberation.
Well, we can, I mean, okay. Well, I don't want to leave it to deliberations. I'd like to understand, you know, what some of the concerns
Well,
are.
we're not going to deliberate on it right now during your presentation, but I asked the question, would you object to going with what we already have in our regulations for dimensions? And you're saying no.
We would object to going with what's currently in the dimensions because we feel that it artificially creates larger sideline and end line requirements that are what's needed based on industry standard or what's based on user standard. We've also discussed this with turf field manufacturers who install these on a national level, and the requirements that are in the current regulations far exceed what's typically provided for an industry standard for other typical developments like this.
Okay.
And what that does is it creates the need for a larger disturbance, a larger developable area to accommodate larger sidelines, where I think we've demonstrated that there's industry standards that don't require that 20 feet versus 10.
So are you proposing to modify your amendment to clean up this portion of the town regulation?
We would certainly, if the commission is looking for uniformity across the regulations, we would certainly think that would be a good idea.
I think you should revisit at minimum the source of information that generated those standards, because I mean, we did spend time and we did have a petitioner who designs and builds these stadiums that opposed those original amendments. So we should at least at minimum revisit the source of that, and maybe we can find that there is a source, or maybe there is more area in it than necessary, but I don't have that at my fingertips.
Okay.
Okay. 4B in Will's comments. The commission should determine if sufficient analysis and evaluation has been provided to support potential added noise and light throughout the night. The industrial district has noise standards that are already established in the regulations, and this, like any development, would have to comply with those regulations. So we feel that those standards, with the added protection measures we're providing in terms of separation from residential districts and minimum parcel size, we think those protection measures are adequately addressed.
There's operation hours also, isn't there, in industrial?
No.
No operation hours? That's in the business district?
Yeah, there's none in the
Any districts.
Not in the business district, but there were.
The only thing that I know that we have is that lights on parking lots have to go off, I think, at 11 or 10, unless the business hours extend past those.
But
Doesn't go
really,
when they close.
the only thing that we have in our regulations is the noise one.
Yes.
That's from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Correct.
It's, I think, 5 less decibels than what is allowed during the daytime hours.
That's correct. And lastly, number C, there's a number of bullets on Will's comments, and I'll run through them. These are following additional zoning provisions should be more fully incorporated. First one, require all electrical connections to and from be underground and within the inside confines of the pole support. All utilities should be underground and internal to the light support structure. That is a long-standing planning and zoning measure to declutter visual conditions. Should not be dictated by manufacturer variations, but rather should be designed to meet the town's design standards. For that, there is, you may want to have the ability to plug something in to one of these light poles, and we feel that how the recommended language from Will was kind of overly restrictive for what we're proposing and really what was reasonable. And the design of the electrical connections would be analyzed and approved under the special exception permit and building permit process anyway, so the commission would have the ability to look at what's being proposed and regulate it in that sense.
I mean, Kevin, we're not talking about an outlet at the bottom of the pole. We're talking about running the electrical lines up along the pole as opposed to inside the pole.
Well, I think the industry standard is those do happen inside the poles, but,
Not always.
well, I can tell you none of the electrical or the lighting manufacturers, the reps that we've talked about for this project have talked anything about providing external
Yeah, I know,
lights.
but it's easier
or
if
external.
if the code dictates that, it makes that issue not even an issue.
Yeah, I mean, some of those external electrical connection boxes are provided based on some, but again, we're not proposing or recommending that you allow these be fed, from pole to pole above ground or anything like that. We just don't think that that's appropriate from.
Again, we're deviating from height. We're going up to 80 feet here.
We're not changing any of the height that's currently allowed.
80 feet's not currently allowed in the zone.
No, we're. Yeah, we're happy to require internally wired. That's
the intent. The intent is
Okay.
not to have these larger appendices on top of, you really want the support pole and the light fixtures, and that to be basically what you can see. I'm not worried about little outlet boxes. I'm not worried about a GPS puck. Same things that you would see in a cell tower analysis. You don't want all those, because those are what makes those towers actually the more visible by having external things that come off of them.
Yeah, I think we're happy to accept, internal wiring for the poles. It was just, I think the way it was initially written, we didn't necessarily see that as the interpretation, so.
Well, beyond that, what would you envision being appended to these poles?
If they wanted to mount a camera to the poles to tape practices or games, we don't think that would be unreasonable. We're not talking about, the regulations have requirements for signage. We're not talking about hanging banners from poles or things like that. But putting a Wi-Fi hotspot or a camera to record games, we didn't see that as problematic from an appendage standpoint.
Well, it's up to the commission.
Cellular antennas?
Hmm?
Cellular antennas?
No.
Just asking.
No cellular antennas.
Unfortunately, we don't have any say in it.
That's true.
That's true. That's a siting council issue. So.
That comes afterward.
Yeah. So we'll keep going though. 2, require pole coloring to be a non-reflective matte coloring to blend with the surrounding landscape environment. Our initial response was color is not in the realm of zoning. And currently the lights that were recently constructed for Massacre are galvanized steel pole. That galvanized steel pole is pretty much an industry standard for these light poles. Now, so we didn't think that requiring a matte color or paint, and I don't know if you consider galvanized steel as a matte color, Will. If you do, maybe this
Well,
isn't an
again,
issue.
without having the spec for that in front of us, it's hard to say this galvanized versus whatever. The idea is to get away from the glare that gets created on some of these. Again, because we're dealing with an 80-foot height, we're no longer dealing with something that's 15 feet tall, and we don't have some of those issues. So the idea is to make it, have the 80-foot tower, but let's not make the tower stick out into the property.
And again, I guess I'd ask if the town feels that the galvanized poles at Massac High School are a problem from an aesthetic standpoint. We don't feel that they are, and we feel that as an industry standard that's acceptable. And I just want to offer the commission, we did some research on this regarding colors and aesthetics. And I want to offer for the commission some analysis that was done by Robert Fuller for Connecticut case law regarding aesthetics and zoning regulations and what can and cannot be put into zoning regulations regarding aesthetics, color, etc. And
It's not about color. It's about compatibility, because you need a special exception permit. And a special exception permit is a permitted use that is not directly compatible on its own with the other uses that don't require the special exception permit. And the commission is well within their realm. It's not about choosing a color, purple versus chartreuse or yellow. It's not about that kind of aesthetic. It's about the compatibility of the structure, physical appearance, such as architecture in some sense, of massing. And what happens is what we're at color is that it blends into the landscape because of the extra height that's being given and getting away from glare issues, which is, again, not about whether it's purple or green. So it's not really about what your analysis is, because I would agree with you that those kinds of things are not germane. But that's not what we're after.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. And just for the commissions for this, for what I've provided from Fuller, it talks about aesthetic considerations and architectural review and what's legally allowed by and authorized by state statute in Connecticut. And what state statutes authorize is the only time where a commission can interpret aesthetics, color, etc., is in a historic district or a village district. That's all that statute allows zoning commissions to adopt within their regulations for these types of considerations. But again, we are proposing, and the question here, I think, is whether or not the commission feels that these would be something that's appropriate for the industrial district. We believe that it is. We believe that their outdoor recreation is already allowed, and you know, we feel that what we're proposing would be consistent with what's found in other, and what would be allowed in what's currently allowed in the school stadium regulation. And that's how we wanted to start from somewhere the commission has already established and vetted and recently approved. So that's where we started with our standards. But again, we're adding additional standards based on some feedback that we've gotten.
And the only other point I make is, I don't dismiss Fuller in a sense, but Fuller is simply an opinion of the statute. It's not the statute.
Certainly. His next bullet, and will I require a removal bond. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, again, we're dealing with something, this big, huge thing that if it's no longer being used, it becomes even, who knows if it doesn't get maintained. I mean, we get into those issues. That's up to the board if they're interested in that or not. Again,
What is a removal bond?
because of this again kind of comes from the regulations relative to, like, this isn't a cell tower, but we're dealing with an 80-foot height. We're not dealing with a 15-foot pole. It's a large structure, and that if it no longer has its use, it's going to be there. And a lot of times when things aren't in use, property owners don't maintain them. And then the only other laws we would have would be if it gets dilapidated, let's say. So the idea is that if it's not using it, there is a mechanism to get rid of it. I mean, that's up to the commission if it wants to go there, but
There would be a bond that would be kept forever?
potentially.
We would respectfully request the commission nuts. The following were added in part, but not in the form of a required Connecticut licensed PE structural analysis, which would include the following. This should not be deferred to a subsequent building permit process. These are specific public safety issues that the commission should evaluate and be assured are addressed. Left to after could also cause changes in design not covered by the approval, requiring a revision to an approved project, and an unneeded return to the commission. So we did include some of these bullets, but these are still on Bill's comments. Structural foundations be based on site geotechnical analysis. We've included that. Stress analysis and safety factor of the poles to conform with AASHTO design standard specifications for structural supports for highway signs, luminaires, and traffic signals. We've included that. Support pole to be designed to prevent leaning. That's a requirement as part of AASHTO. Support pole to be designed to withstand a minimum of 160 mile per hour wind load and maintain light aiming alignment, will not move or become misaligned. We're not sure where you came up with 160 mile per hour, because the state building code establishes wind speeds and AASHTO has wind speeds. And in Connecticut, and I don't believe, there's nowhere in Connecticut that experiences wind speeds of 160 miles per hour. And I believe the state building code for Monroe is 100 miles an hour, or possibly 105 miles per hour.
I'd have to dig up where that came
But we think any of these things would have to be designed in accordance with the building code and the state building code requirements, and we're including ASHTO, so we felt that was sufficient. Prohibit sound or amplification systems. Not included in this is not the same as compliance with the noise standards, especially if 24-hour use is to be permitted as proposed. I think prohibiting sound or amplification systems, we're talking about proposing this in an industrial district where it would be much less impactful to surrounding neighbors or residential than where it's currently allowed for high school stadiums in residential zones, immediately abutting residential property. So we didn't feel that was necessary. And then require annual testing on lamps, lenses, conduits, poles, fuses, ballasts, grounding connections, and breaker boxes to ensure integrity and safety of the facilities. Again, this is a matter of public safety and is an appropriate condition of special exception permit approval. We don't think that should be a requirement in the zoning regulations. We feel that's kind of goes far beyond, from a zoning standpoint, what is typically regulated by zoning regulations. As a special exception permit, the commission can require any conditions that they want. So whether this is in the regs or not, you could require that if you felt strongly about it. We don't feel it's appropriate or necessary. And we don't necessarily think that it's reasonable to put in the regulations, because even the town-owned properties, I'm sure from an operational standpoint, owners want these things to function. They want them to work and to function and to not create issues from a public safety standpoint. So there's an innate responsibility to make sure these things work. We don't feel that adding an additional zoning regulation to further expand upon that is necessary.
Notwithstanding that piece, but what you said, the premise, I don't want the commission to be understanding that just because it's a special exception permit, they can make any condition they want. That condition still has to have some generated source out of the regulation. They can't just make up any old condition that they want. I mean, obviously you have to tie it to some nexus of the conditions of the regulations. Understand?
One other comment that I wanted to touch on had to do with one of Will's initial comments actually had to do with the table of maintained average illumination light levels. And initially Will had commented that he would actually like to see the light levels for industrial districts reduced from what was currently allowed in the high school field. Now, we didn't want to agree to a reduced light level, but I will say that, maybe in looking at this, maybe a tweak to the language would be necessary to not only address the industrial district, but also the school stadium lighting, because what this says is, the lighting system shall have a maintained average illumination complying with the foot candle levels indicated for the specific play field type. Now, for field hockey, football, soccer, lacrosse, it's 50-foot candles. There are instances during a practice where they may only have half the lights turned on, and that foot candle level may only be 30. Now, how it's currently written, I don't think this gives either the town or any field operator the ability to operate less than what's established on this table. So I think instead of saying shall have a maintained average illumination light level, maybe have it say a maximum average illumination level, so that if they want to play field hockey, football, or soccer at a 30-foot candle level, they have the ability to do so.
It does say maximum, doesn't it?
It does,
Bottom of the
bottom
graph.
edge.
No, it says the maximum average light levels within the play field shall not exceed 105% of the listed foot candle value.
Right.
So
But
that
you
means
can't go
that
lower. You just can't go higher. No?
I read that as, so if the average is 50, you can have a maximum light candle level that's 105% of 50, so
Maximum.
55.
Right.
But the way this reads, I don't see you have an ability to operate at lower levels. Well, do you have a?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you read it literally, you could interpret it. I mean, that really wasn't the intent, but.
Okay.
But they were after those light levels because of the safety for when they're playing a football game, which is really what they were after.
Right.
That you needed to maintain at least that level to have the safety factor that was necessary. No one was really focusing on it being that had to have that lighting. It was, you know, that's what they were after. It wasn't,
Okay.
so.
Or, you know, I agree with what Will's saying for this school stadium lighting. We want to say you have to have this much light as a safety factor. But at a private facility, add one line saying that, you know, light levels can be reduced at the operator's
Desire. And I think that would, and I think
I
that
don't
would be.
think, I don't think you need to really do that, because no one's gonna be chasing anybody, and if it's less, so what? I mean, it is for the safety purpose of it, I get it, but, I just don't wanna say that it's less, something can be less safe.
Well,
And we're not
it
necessarily
also could turn
suggesting
into a
that.
liability issue
Yeah,
for the
I know,
operator,
I
because
know.
if someone gets hurt on the private field and they look at the town regulations, and the regulations say that you're supposed to maintain,
50.
where's soccer?
50.
50-foot candles for soccer, and we're out there playing, and you only have 30, you know, I got hurt because you didn't have enough light. I would think it would be in your client's benefit to have it in the regulation that you don't have to maintain those
Yeah,
limits.
and I think that's a reasonable.
I mean, that could be a one-line ad
Yeah.
in somewhere.
I think that'd be appropriate. Essentially summarizes our presentation. I'd like to see if the commission has any comments or questions.
Jonathan, you always get to go first.
It's very nice to go first. I saw that you had a facility in Fairfield, at Fairfield University, and then Wesleyan in Middletown. Did you look at any other, maybe somewhere closer to us, any surrounding towns or areas, and what their requirements were for the perimeter?
We didn't look at other zoning regulations for perimeter field requirements, and it's actually, I don't think I've ever seen perimeter field requirements in a zoning regulation, and it's only in the zoning regs here because it's tied to the lighting component of the field. Looked at the sites that we did is because those are places where the current club that's looking to come to Monroe, those are the facilities that they use. That's where they play competitive games and have competitive practices and things like that. So we kind of looked at that, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to support that. We're proposing 10, you know, when they're used to playing on fields that only provide, or we're proposing 12, they're used to playing on fields that only provide 10. So that's why we looked at those. We didn't look at surrounding communities and zoning regulations, but I don't remember seeing specific field dimensional requirements in any zoning reg.
Okay. And the only other concern I had is the possible inconsistency between, I think that was a concern earlier, that there would be different requirements as in the school stadium. That was the only other concern I had. If it were to change both of them, that concern would go away. But that's all I have.
Well, I think to your second comment, I think we can probably work to see where the initial standard came from, because as I said, we were able to find some support documentation for what we're proposing. And it may make sense to we obviously want to eliminate inconsistency. So maybe there is an opportunity to also modify the required sidelines for the municipal fields as well.
All right, why no restriction on hours of operation? Why are you proposing that?
Well, a lot of the times these clubs, they'll have, it's not necessarily like a hockey rink where you're obviously fighting for ring time, but there is an opportunity where they are going to be competing for time either late or early. And I think the commission feels strongly about providing some restriction, we may be able to find a common ground. But, you know, ideally, they'd like to be able to operate, you know, they may have a practice at midnight or because there are other groups and clubs which may practice at later times or earlier in the morning. Yeah, actually. And I'm going to invite Carl McNair up from Beachside Soccer, who can actually speak a little bit more to that. Thanks, Carl.
Hi, thank you very much. It's great to be here tonight. I appreciate your time. I will answer that question right now. My name is Carl McNair.
Thank you.
I'm president of Beachside of Connecticut Soccer Club. We're a 24-year-old organization. We've been operating in Fairfield County for many years. We are what is known as a premier or an academy soccer club. We train boys and girls at the highest level. Hopefully some of your kids have even played for our club, or if not, will be able to play for us in the future. I'll speak specifically to the hours. We basically start our operation at around 4:30 in the afternoon, and we go till midnight or beyond. And that's because basically our kids are everything from, we start at usually around 9 years old, and we go all the way to 18 or 19. So our window of opportunity is Monday through Friday from 4:30 in the afternoon till when we can end. And after that, we do offer some programs for men's adult leagues and women adult leagues. And interestingly enough, they want to play at very early in the mornings on Saturdays and Sundays, or very late at night after the day is done. And I'm told that's because that's when their spouses allow them to go out and play soccer, is once the day is done. So that's the reason for the extended hours.
I mean, what is your typical hours usually? I mean, even with the people that come in the people that are the older people, like you're saying, after, you know, the 18-year-olds and the adults.
Typically, the men's and the women's leagues, it's 1 or 2 nights a week, and you know, they'll play for a couple of hours. Like.
And what time does that run from? Usually, what time is that from?
Till 11 to 1, something like that.
Are they out playing soccer at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning?
If you've ever been to Gold Sports in Stratford, Connecticut, which is an indoor facility, yes. They're operating almost 24/7. It's crazy.
Indoor, Bob. That's indoor.
That's indoor.
Outdoor.
Right. Well, that means in February and March, they wouldn't be in outdoors.
Right.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
And that's my area of concern too, is just
The hours.
the hours and the overflow of noise and light. That's the thing I'm struggling with.
Michael?
No, I have to echo those concerns. You're 500 feet away from residential zone boundary.
Correct.
No, is there any, do you provide light maps like we generally see?
Yep.
If we're going to bring an application forward?
Yes, we would have to provide, as part of a special exception permit process, we'd have to provide
Light.
a light, and it's actually more than just your normal lighting plan. We actually provide a light assessment, which was added as part of the stadium requirements. And we have to provide a light level showing foot candles at the property line. And there's actually an additional requirement that that plan has to be someone that's certified through the ISLNA, I believe it is.
Okay, that's all my question.
Okay. I will just echo that same concern with the hours. I would like to see some type of a cutoff time. I'm not sure exactly what that time should be, but I think there should be. It shouldn't be that they just have free rein at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to be outside playing soccer, because even though we have a noise ordinance in place, it turns into an enforcement headache. And, you know, you can tell people to be quiet and leave, and 20 minutes later, you have to go back and tell people to be quiet. And it's just, even though we are 500 feet away, you know, at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I live on the west side of town, and I can hear the trains up in Stevenson when they go through on certain nights. You know, so the sound travels at night. You don't have that ambient background sound. And it's just, I see it as being a problem long-term.
Would the commission be willing to allow those lights to stay on until 1 a.m.?
I can't give you an answer. That would be something for the commission to discuss. But you're proposing lights out at 1 a.m.?
Yes.
Back on at what time?
I believe the current regs are 7.
It's 7 a.m. right now.
Yeah, so 1 a.m. and 7 a.m.
I'll note that. I imagine all of the lighting specs that we have currently for shielding and all that remains the same.
They do, but the stadium lights have other
That's what I
specific
mean.
requirements.
Our
All the other
existing stadium light specs
apply to
for
this
the
regulation as
school
well.
are going to be the same for this.
Yes, that's correct. We didn't modify any of those standards.
You already said there would be no signs hanging off the light poles. The removal bond is something that the commission would have to all weigh in on, but I understand your desire to not have that. I question the need, and this is more for Will than for you, Mr. Soley. I question the need to have these building permit issues in the zoning regulations. You know, we just went through a similar situation when we were doing the pavement amendment. Zoning regulations that somewhat conflicted with some of the building regulations and the paving standards that the town has. Again, trying to coordinate all of the regulations in town. I don't know if there's a need to have a building-related issue in the zoning regulations.
I think it's more as a public safety issue, and whether the building code covers all these issues, I can't tell you that.
Right, but you know, foundation designs, wind speed rating on a pole, that really is the purview of the building department. Or if need be, maybe through the engineering department, some input, but I don't see it as a zoning issue.
Well, again, that's up to you. You can put in your code you want.
We do agree with that characterization, Chairman Porter.
Thank you. I think that is all that I had noted. I would like to see whatever the decision is made on the field sizes, that the school stadium sizes and the private field sizes are the same. However that works out,
okay. They
should be the same. That's my opinion. I can't speak for the commission on that.
We'd be happy to do some additional research and come back to the commission at the next meeting to clarify some of those items. You know, the National Federation, we found specific requirements for soccer fields, right?
I think we should collaborate with Will on that and both come to an agreement on what set of standards we're going to use.
Certainly.
Does anyone else from the commission have any other questions? All right. We open it up to the floor. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in opposition to this amendment? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this amendment?
Once again, Carl McNair. I represent Beachside of Connecticut Soccer Club, and I won't take very little of your time because I know it's late. But I just want you to know that we have been working very hard and very diligently for many years to find a suitable facility where we can call home. We have decided that Monroe, we want to be our specific home, our Fenway, our Yankee Stadium, or whatever your team of choice is. The Go Mets, whatever. Go Pats, whatever. We're a 24-year-old organization, started in Norwalk, Connecticut, and we have committed ourselves to doing two things: teaching kids to play soccer and to play the game the right way, and two, to develop kids to become young adults, whether they play soccer as young adults or whether they just become good lawyers, doctors, engineers, teachers, etc. And we've done both of those things. We have national team players, Benny Faulhaber, Marcus Tracy, Kyle Martino, all played for the national team. They all came from Beachside. But we've also had a lot of really good kids that have come back to their communities, be it Fairfield, Newtown, Westport, Greenwich, and now they're serving their community in a lot of different ways. We value both of those things. We spend a lot of time. We have a college placement rate of our boys and girls of 85%. 85% of the kids that come out of our program go on to play college soccer. The national average is around 5.3%. So it is not atypical for us to graduate 18 kids in a class of boys or girls, and 15 of them go on to play college soccer. Does that mean that they're great kids or great individuals? No, but we do a really good job. And we do a really good job when those kids, and I'll give you one example. We have a graduating class that are graduating from college this year. 18 of those boys, of those 18 boys, 15 went on to play college soccer at Division I, Division II, Division III schools. 3 of them did not. The 3 that did not went to Yale, went to Georgetown, and went to Emory. So they also got good educations, and they did really good things. And we are passionate about what we do, about teaching the game of soccer, and also about teaching kids to be responsible citizens and students of life. So we are very excited to be working with John and Kevin to bring this, finally, to bring ourselves a home. He showed you a few of the places that we practice. That's nothing. In our 24 years, we played and practiced in 27 different facilities across Fairfield County. Everything from Danbury High School, University of Bridgeport, Kinglow, Haywood, and Stanford, Trinity Catholic. We are all over the place. And it's just, it will be such a huge boon to us as a community to be able to finally have a home at Independence and Timothy Hill Drive, whatever the address is. I don't know yet. somewhere in Pepper Street Park in Monroe. So thank you very much. If there's anything I can provide for any of you, any additional information, I'm happy. Kevin knows how to get hold of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else with any general questions or comments about this application? Okay, seeing none.
Well, I think just, obviously there's been some concerns about making sure there's consistency, so we can work with Will to address that before the next meeting.
You would like to continue this to the next meeting? That means by the end of the day, next Wednesday,
yep,
we would have to have the information. You think that's?
Yes.
Will, do you think that's?
All we're dealing with is.
Yeah, we can probably find a time, hopefully we'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll continue this to the 4th. Thank you. It's gonna be a marathon. Gonna be like the Rick Zinni days.
That can be interpreted so many ways.
Okay. Site plan review, site development plan, we have none. Deliberations and determinations, number 9, extensions, we have none. Bond releases or reductions, none. Meeting minutes, we have
One set, right?
yeah, just the one set for March
One set.
23rd.
Yep.
We don't have the April 6th yet.
John, your name is misspelled.
Yeah, that was gonna be my correction. More hazing for the new guy.
So, let's see. We have Porter, Ambrosi, O'Reilly. Can we vote on it with just 3?
Yeah, we can, right?
Well, only if he was seated that night, I thought.
Oh, this is minutes.
Okay. You're seated. All right, we have a draft for March 23rd, 2013. Do we have a motion?
Well, I wasn't here, right, so we can't make.
Accept the minutes of March 23rd, 2017, as amended with your style.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any comments?
Oh, it was just the name, but it says it then.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
Anything? Anyone?
No?
No? Well, we have a motion, we have a second, we have no comments. Call the roll.
Formicella, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Porter, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
All right. And the April 6th, obviously, since we don't have it, will be tabled to our next meeting.
Okay.
Application deliberations and determinations.
You wanna
The only thing that we could possibly
do
do
sign.
is the sign regulations.
Right.
I know that Will usually likes to wait for a letter, but this is our regulation.
Right.
There were no comments.
It's one less thing to do on the 4th.
That's exactly right. So I think we'll get that done right now.
Yeah. All right.
Do you want a
We
motion?
we need a motion.
I move to accept RAA 2017-05, file number 988E, wall sign and private commercial street signs.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on that?
Wait a second.
What's that?
Dave?
David?
No.
No discussion.
Everybody's good?
Good.
Call the roll.
Now, do you, I'm sorry, I'm getting this confused with wetlands. Don't you guys usually state a reason or,
No.
you don't do that?
Reason.
I thought that was in your, I'm just trying
For our
to,
amendment regulations?
I thought it was for anything, your,
Yeah, because our old regulation was not good, and we made it better.
It's an improvement.
That's right, he's
How's
chairman.
that?
I like it.
So I think we're good.
Call the roll.
Formicella, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Townsend, yes.
Porter, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Well, we passed the zoning amendment.
Because it was better.
Better.
Sign amendment.
Not in writing? Okay. Yes, not in writing, we passed it. You're gonna write this. I mean.
That's true. That's true, it's a text amendment.
Yeah, it's our amendment. There were no
There's
changes.
no changes, so.
So it is now been voted on and approved by the commission, so
Okay.
you can do your thing. Okay.
Did you set an effective date? You need to set an effective date with that.
Okay, it will be effective,
And the effective date, if you're doing it tonight, it does relate to the noticing. So what are we, we're April 20th? So April 20th, the notice will be on the 27th, so you could make it the 1st of May.
effective May 1st.
Either someone needs to amend your motion or augment your amending it easier.
Effective May 1st.
Why don't you just amend the motion?
I'll amend the motion that the regulation text amendment will be effective May 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Done?
Almost, a couple more minutes.
Oh.
Regulation Review Amendment Work Session. We are not going to schedule a meeting for next week because next Thursday, and I'm going to jump right ahead to my chairman's report. Next Thursday is the state meeting on Route 25 and 111.
And that's,
That meeting is Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. at Monroe Hall. I plan on attending. I hope if any of you are available,
Right.
you will attend also.
I plan on attending.
Find out what the state's planning for these
Yeah.
two main thoroughfares through our town.
Let's be clear, the purpose of the meeting is a study that the town of Monroe and Trumbull are doing under the auspices of MetroCog funded through DOT. This meeting is gonna present the existing conditions and the future conditions, right? The future traffic generation.
Yeah, I think the focus is maybe
Right.
more on the,
So we're not at the point of projected options yet. We're just, this is sort of the here's existing condition, this is what the future traffic would be
Projected
under
future.
background growth and under certain series of different project developments that both towns have helped identify through the process. And so we're still in the midst of the study. The next step after this, after we get input, is for the consultant to do analysis of potential scenarios of what can be done to the intersections and to the roadway and whatever improvements, so.
and those are the things that will be used by you guys when you do future, have future applications, you'll be able to use, we'll all be able to use that as a reference.
Okay.
But you still should go.
Oh, I still plan to go, and that's why we're not going to have a subcommittee meeting next week.
Okay.
Any other commissioners have anything? Staff, anything?
No.
No? No? Motion to adjourn?
Second?
No, I need a motion.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second.